Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's Daf Yomi, which is Beya Daf Chaf Aleph. We begin 5 lines from the top of the Amud, right at the 2 dots. Boi minei Rav Avia Saba, the elder of Avia, asked a Shaila Mei Rav Huna. What was the Shaila? Behema. If you have an animal on Yom Tov, which is jointly owned by a Yisrael and by a Goy, Chetzer Shel Nachri, half belongs to a Nachri, the Chetzer Shel Yisrael, and half to a Yisrael. Ma'u l'shachta b'Yom Tov. Can one do shchita on this behema so that the Yisrael can access his portion, his basar? Problem is, you're doing the shchita on a behema which is jointly owned by a Yisrael and by a Goy. So shchita applies to the portion that belongs to the Goy, and you can't do a malacha even for the echel nefesh of a Goy and Yom Tov. Amalei Rav Huna responded, mutter, no problem, of course. You can do the shchita on the behema so that the Yisrael can access his portion. Amalei Rav Avia Saba proceeded to ask Rav Huna, really? You can do that? Even though only a small portion of the animal belongs to the Yisrael, only half of it? What's the difference between this case, where you allow the shchita on account of the portion which belongs to the Yisrael, and the karbanos, which we say, since they're meant for Hashem, meant for the Mizbeach, you cannot do a malacha there. Karbanos which are donated to the Mizbeach. Even though, in that case as well, a part of it will be eaten by the kohen, by the owner. So why can't you do shchita to enable the Yisrael or the kohen to have their portion? It's echel nefesh. Amalei Rav Huna changed the topic. Urva parach. Take a look. There's an urva flying overhead. There's a raven flying. So he diverted his attention. He didn't directly relate to his question, and he left. Rav Avia left without an answer. Ki nafak. When Rav Avia left, Amalei Rabba Brace, so Rav Huna's son, his name was Rabba, turns to his father. Why did you treat him like that? Lav, Hainu, Rav Avia Saba. Isn't this the famous Rav Avia Saba, the Mishtabach Le Marbek Avei, that you always praise him? The Gab Rabba, that he's a great man. So why did you just send him off like that? Unceremoniously, without relating to his question properly. Amalei, so Rav Huna responded, it wasn't personal. I was just in a weakened state. Umma Avadle, what could I have done here? How could I have related to him properly? Ani hayoim, today I'm in a situation of weakness. Samchuni ba'ashishes, raptuni ba'tapuchim. I need somebody to serve me a meal. Rashi says, it was Yom Tov. I just finished my drash. I'm totally exhausted. I need to refresh myself. I need to have some sustenance. I sit down to a meal. And Rav Avia asked me a question, Milsa, something the Boya Tama, which needs proper concentration and real clarity, and I just couldn't relate to it properly. Sorry, it wasn't personal, it was just I wasn't able to relate to it. Continues the Gemara. Okay, so indeed, what is the answer? A behema of a shutfus, you can do shchita, but a behema which has a chelik legavoya and chelik lehedyet, such as an adorim and davis, shchita cannot be done. Why not? What's the difference? Indeed, what is the reason to differentiate between the two cases? Answers the Gemara. When you have a jointly owned animal, you know why shchita is permissible? Because you cannot access even a small portion, even a kazayis of basar, without being shech the entire animal. So it's inevitable. You have to do shchita on the entire animal to get even a small chelik of basar, the chelik of the Yisrael. Aval nedarim nedavis, as opposed to karbanis. Over there, you may not do shchita on Yom Tov. Although we have a portion which will not go on the mizbeach, will be eaten by your layman, by the owner, by kayhanim. Still, that's not a reason to be matir. The kayhanim kikazoch. When kayhanim azoich and their portion, you know where they're getting it from? It's not their private property. They're getting it from Hashem's table. So in reality, the shechita on this carbon is a avoida for the sake of hakrava, l'tzorech gavoya, as Tosfos says. When you've done the avoida, l'shem Hashem, Hashem gives them part of His korban. So in effect, the shechita is not there to enable the achila for the kohen, it's to process the korban l'Hashem, and that's not considered oichel nefesh, and that's not mutar yom tov. Let's go over to Rashi, 3 lines from the top of the Amud. So Rav Huna tells him that a behema which is jointly owned by Yisrael and by a guy can be shechted on Yom Tov. And he asked him, well, why can that not be done by a nether or nedava? Says Rashi, "My ben zel den nedava," which is a similar case. Shechetzim loy, chetzim gavoy, half belongs to him, half to Hashem. V'asal sheichtan, you cannot do shechita b'nei chelek gavoya. The reason why you can't do shechita is because we consider it a korban, because there's a portion of the sperm which goes to Hashem. Ignore that part. The shechita is also to enable me to have that korban. He didn't respond. Urev parach, oirev apoirech. Look, there's a oirev flying lamala. He sealed over achar. He changed the topic. Kinaf Rav Avia. When Rav Avia, the petitioner, left, Amali Rabba Brei the Rav Huna la'avur. He turns to his father. He says, "Lav hainu, isn't this the famous Rav Avia Savia? V'lama dechisei. Why did you just ignore him? V'alach lebechlima." He left. He left like that. Ani hayom samchuni ba'ashishas. Look, I'm just in a weakened state right now. Yom Tov v'derashti l'rabim. I finished my drasha. V'chalisi m'terech hadrasha. I'm very weak. V'koyrani alai. And I applied to myself the pasuk which says, "Samchuni ba'ashishos," is a pasuk in Shir Shirim, and in this case, what he meant was Havilu suda ve'esait. I must have some nutrients to sustain, to refresh myself. There's a gillion on the side of the daf in the name of the Aruch, that it was actually the day where he was appointed Rosh HaYeshiva. This was a very busy day for him, and he wasn't able to relate properly to this question, which required focus and concentration. Continues Rashi, "V'taimamai." Indeed, what is the answer to the question? Sugya de Gemara. The Gemara itself will discuss it now. It wasn't Rav Huna, it's just the Gemara, Ravina, Ravashi. And the answer is, Kehanim Meshulchan Kavay Kazachu. B'chazav Yeshek. The Kehanim get their chelik of the korban from Hashem. V'udin Labalam B'shara Basar. Same applies to the chelik of the basar, which will go to the owner. Ki Eved HaNoitel Prasm Beis Rabbi. It's as though a servant is receiving a gift from his master. So it's not their private chelik. It's something that Hashem is granting to them after there was a hakrav of a korban. Nimtzei, says Rashi. If so, it turns out that kol hashchita l'shem gavoya, the entire shchita process is for the sake of processing a korban. It's not considered a shchita for private use, and therefore it cannot be done on Yom Tov. Continues the Gemara. In the same vein, Amar of Chizda behema chetzi shel nachri v'chetzi shel Yisrael. You have a jointly owned animal, half goy, half Yisrael. Mutal shachta b'Yom Tov. Shchita is allowed. For that reason, the efshel kazayis basar b'lo shchita, because even for only a kazayis of basar, you need to do shchita on the entire animal, and therefore it's considered shchita for the sake of Yisrael. As opposed to Isa, you have a dough, which is chetzi shel nachri v'chetzi shel Yisrael, a jointly owned dough. Osola foisa b'Yom Tov, that you cannot bake on Yom Tov. You know why? You have a way out. The efshel leila mifla gabalisha. You can split it up while it's still in its dough state. No excuse here. No reason to bake the entire thing. Separate the dough. Split apart the part of the Yisrael, bake that, and give the guy his dough. So it's different than an animal which you can't split before shechita. Mos Rav Chana bar Chaniloi. So he asked the kasha of Chizda. You're telling me that dough is different? Isas klavim. Listen to this Mishnah. Mishnah al-Chala. You have a dough which is called Isas klavim, meant to be fed to the dogs. It's full of bran and barely edible. So it depends. Depends how much bran is in there. Bizman she'royin oichlem mimena. If it's not so saturated with bran to the extent that the roy and the shepherds will still partake in this dough, meaning it's edible. Chayevas b'chala, then we consider it to be a true dough. That's chayev and chala. Uma arvenba. You can use this bread for an erev chatzera to join together all the courtyards and allow them to carry from one to the other. To join together the houses in the courtyard, to allow carrying from house to house. You can use this bread to establish a shituf mavois, which means you're going to join together all the courtyards heading into the alleyway to allow them to carry there. As a din of proper bread. You meant to make a bracha of hamoitzi on this, you can join together in the brichas hazimun, meaning you can make a brichas hamazon. You can bake it on Yom Tov because it's edible. The shepherds will have some of it. If you turn it into matzah, you can use it for mitzvahs matzah on the first night of Pesach. So that's the Mishnah. Asks the Gemara, V'amai, why are you allowing to bake this entire batch on Yom Tov? Because the roya will partake in somewhat. Some piece will go to the roya. What do you mean? Because the roya will take some, you can bake the entire thing. You can go split it while it's still in its dough state. There's no reason to bake the entire batch. That's a kasha of Chizda, who tells us that if you have the option of splitting it in advance of the baking process, you must do that. Shani Isas Klavim says, here it's different. This Isas Klavim is very different. Because theoretically, it can be eaten by the entire thing can be eaten by the shepherd. Because if he wishes, he can take an avela and offer it to the dogs instead of this bread. He can be mefais, he can pacify, he can satisfy the dogs with something else. So since theoretically he can do that, we consider the entire bread as a ma'achal adam, as a ichal nefesh, and you can bake it on Yom Tov. As opposed to the Isa, which was jointly Yisrael and Nachri, there, half it goes to the guy. Over here, theoretically, the roya can eat the entire thing. Says the Gemara, Umi islay Rav Chizda hoyel? Rav Chizda would hold of this concept of hoyel, since theoretically it can be roy for the person, it's considered echel nefesh. Itmar, we learned elsewhere. So he's finished his Suda on Yom Tov. He sets out to bake another loaf of bread for tomorrow, for a weekday. If Chizda Amar Loike, according to Rav Chizda, gets malchus, he did a malach on Yom Tov. It's not echel nefesh for today, it's for after Yom Tov. It's a malacha. He gets malchus. Rabbi Amar Loike, there's no malchus. Why? Rav Chizda Amar Loike, according to Rav Chizda, there is malchus. Lo yamrin and hoyel. We don't apply the concept of hoyel. Since what? Hoyel mikli le'orchem. Since if, should some unexpected guests arrive today, chazile will be suitable for him, meaning he'll use it to serve his guests. Hashtanami chazile, perhaps we should apply that svar and say, well, this mass of baking is not considered a malach, it's considered echel nefesh, because perhaps, you never know, some guests might arrive, therefore we shouldn't consider it a malacha, it's echel nefesh. Rabbi doesn't hold of that. The fact is, you're not expecting guests. You did it for tomorrow, you get malchus. Rabbi Amar Eina Loike. According to Rabbi, there's no malchus because of that reason of hoyel. So Rabbi holds of hoyel. Rav Chizda doesn't. Rabbi says, no, it's not a malacha. Although, you're not really expecting guests, but you never know. Hoyel, amrinan, hoyel, we say hoyel, that guests might arrive, and it's roy for them. It's considered oichel nefesh, it's not a malacha. Pretty clear that Rav Chizda doesn't hold of hoyel. So how could we say that the Isas HaKlavim, since theoretically you can substitute it with a nevela and have it all for himself, it's not considered a malacha, it's considered eichel nefesh. He's not planning on eating it, since, theoretically, that's not going to work according to Rav Chizda. Ella rather, says the Gemara, you know what the reason? You know what the reason is? Don't say, since he could give them an nevela and could eat it, it's considered eichel nefesh. Ella rather, could go into islay nevela. His fellow has an nevela handy, and he's going to try to serve that to the klavim. The vadai efshel avaisim an nevela. He's certainly able to give them a nevela. As Rabbi Yehuda says, he's going to give them the nevela. He prefers giving them the nevela which he can't eat and keep the entire bread for himself. So he's going to try that as a first option, and therefore We allow him to bake this bread on the chance, on the hope, the possibility that he will actually eat it. So again, when it comes to a behemoth shutfin, all agree you can do the shchita, otherwise you can't access your portion. When it comes to an isa, half goy, half yid, Rav Chizah says, split it apart. You can't bake the entire thing. Continues the Gemara is another shaila. Bo'u minei Rav Huna. They asked Rav Huna the following question. Hani bnei baga. You have these villagers, these Jewish people living out in the towns. Duramu alayu, which is incumbent on them, kimcha de bnei chela, the flour of the troops, of these soldiers. So the authorities gave them flour with instructions. When the troops come by, you have to supply them with bread. You have to prepare their bread. Ma'ula afoisa b'yamtiv. Can this be done on Yom Tov? Can you bake bread for the goyim? Amar Lu, Rav Huna responds, Chazina. Let's take a look. Suppose after they bake the bread, all the loaves of bread are baked by the Yisraelim for the troops. And then they go and take one loaf and give it to the child, one roll for the Yenuka. For the Kapti, and these soldiers wouldn't be particular, they wouldn't be mocked, but they would allow you to do it. Look, you baked us nice bread. No problem, give one to the kid. If that works, if that would be successful, then we say you can bake the entire batch, because theoretically each roll that you're baking can be used for the Yenuka. So if that option exists, that allows you to bake the entire batch. But otherwise, if you know they wouldn't allow you to give anything to the Jewish child, also then you can't bake the whole thing. Because for a guy, there's no Yisrael element in there at all. Now Rashi says that apparently this shita of Rav Huna will disagree with Rav Chizda mentioned earlier, who said that a batch which is jointly owned by Yisrael and Goyim cannot be baked at all. Here we see it's not so. Rav Huna disagrees. As long as some of it is roy for the Yisrael, it's mutter. Tosfos disagrees. He says even Rav Chizda, who didn't allow us to bake the jointly owned dough, that's because you can just split it before baking. Here you couldn't do that. Here the only way the troops would allow you to take something for the kid is after you finish baking the entire batch. Okay, as a bonus, they allow you to take something home. So in order to access that roll, you have to bake the entire thing. Here, says Tosfos, all would agree it's mutter, because the entire process is considered for the sake of the Yisrael. Okay, either way, continues the Gemara. The fact that you have something in there that can serve a Yisrael allows you to do the entire thing. Vatanya, listen to this, Bryce. There was an incident involving Shimon Hatimani. Rashi says he came from Timnas, the same place where Shimshon HaGiver's father-in-law came from. So Shimshon Hatimani didn't show up at the Beis Medrash on the night of Yom Tov. He missed the Beis Medrash on the night of Yom Tov. But Shachar, the next morning, Rabbi Yehuda Kessler meets him and he says, "Where were you? Why didn't you come to the Beis Medrash last night?" So Shimon responded, "Baleshes boili rain." It was an emergency. This looting troop came to our town, and they wanted to loot the entire town. Ubiksha lachta is called Ir. They wanted to rob the entire city. We took one of their calves and we helped them out. We did a shchita on their egel, and we served them a meal. And we sent them away. And we salvaged our property. Okay, so I was busy. So Rabbi Yehuda responds, Tomeani, I'm wondering if you really gained anything. If your gain wasn't really offset by your loss. What do you mean? You had monetary gain, protected your property, but at what expense? You did a malacha. You did a shchita for a guy on Yom Tov. Sharei Amar Torah, because the Torah clearly says lochem. Eichel nefesh can only be for the sake of Yisrael. Pasuk says, Ach asher ya'ochel l'chol nefesh hu levada ya'asa lochem. For Yisrael, you can't do a malacha eichel nefesh for a guy. So that was the end of the story. Why does the Gemara bring it in? There's going to be a kash on the previous halacha, where we learned that the Yisraelim in the villages can prepare, can bake for the troops, as long as there's some potential benefit, even in a small measure, for Yisrael. So what's the problem in the case of the animal? V'amai, what's the problem? The Yisrael can have some benefit from it. After they shecht and prepared, the guy won't mind if the Yisrael take off a bit. So as long as we have that potential benefit, even a small measure of hana for Yisrael, that allows you to do the entire thing. Amar Rav Yosef, egel treifa avoy. It was a treifa animal, which isn't muta for Yisrael. In that case, you're doing a malacha strictly for the sake of a guy, and it's us. What do you mean? It's still right to feed the Jewish dogs. So there's still hana there for the Yisrael. Says more tanoi. It's actually machlokes tanoi. Whether or not you can do malacha for the eichel nefesh of a behema, of an animal. So apparently Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava, who wasn't happy with what happened, held that you can't do a malacha for the sake of a dog, even a Jewish-owned dog, and therefore he was surprised. He says, Tamiyani, why'd you do that? Where do we find this machlokes? The Sanya. Ach asher yachal chol nefesh hu levadi yosel lachem. Torah says you can do malacha for the sake of food preparation. What does l'chol nefesh mean? The fact that the pasuk uses the word l'chol nefesh, perhaps I would say shemiani. I would conclude afilu nefesh behema b'mashma, includes even an animal. Shekinin shenemar, as we find the word nefesh associated with an animal. Umake nefesh behema shalmena. If one strikes, one kills a behema, he has to pay for the loss. Apparently, the word nefesh can relate even to a behema. So perhaps oichal nefesh on Yom Tov can be done even for a living being. Tamalayim lachem. That's what the pasuk says, the word lachem, to indicate no, lachem v'lei leklavim, only for personal use, not for the dogs. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. That's one shita. No, afilu nefesh beima b'mashma. The pasuk says you can do oichal nefesh. It includes even for an animal. It came out tamalayim lachem. So why then does the pasuk add the word lachem? Lachem v'lei leklavim. For Yisrael as opposed to a non-Yisrael. Umar rois l'rabbis is aklavim. Why did you prefer including the dogs? And to exclude the goyim. Zakasha on why prefer the klavim as opposed to the akum? Answers the Gemara. Marvin as aklavim. I prefer adding the klavim. Because the owner is looking after. He has an obligation to look after his dog, and therefore we assume it's included in his allowance. As opposed to a akum she'ein mizenasin alecha, who we have no obligation to feed them. Therefore, it's assumed that when the Torah allows you to do malacha on Yom Tov, it's only going to include the person and his possessions, as opposed to a strange guy. Continues the Gemara. Amali abayir Rabbi Yosef. Well, Rabbi Yosef Aglili, according to Shittas Rabbi Yosef Aglili, the Amar, who just told us, lachem v'lei leklavim. The lachem excludes dogs. Hani sufli. What about these date pits, which aren't really edible, even for the animals, as Tosfos explains? So they're really muktzah. Let's say you choose to feed it to the animal. How can you do it? It's muktzah. You can't do a malacha, or even muktzah for the sake of an animal. Hani sufli, these pits, l'chiyusa to the animals, heichishadin elu b'yom tov. How can you toss it to the animals on Yom Tov? And as Tosfos points out, it seems that the halacha of Maaseh follows Rabbi Yosef Aglili, that lochem excludes animals. In fact, the Gemara earlier brought a Mishnah as well, that the isas haklovim can only be baked if it's intended for human consumption. So we see the halacha follows Rabbi Yosef Aglili. You can't do malacha for animals, so how can you throw them in these pits which are muktzah? Amalei, so Rabbi Yosef responds, Hoil v'chozol hasaka, since they're suitable to be used for firewood, for personal consumption, in which case they're not muktzah. Tenech be'yeveshta, that explains dried out pits, which can be used for heating, for fire. B'retiv to my kilamema, what about these fresh pits, these moist pits, which can't be used for firewood? They should be muktzah. Amalei, Rabbi Yosef responds, Chazul lehesa gadol, you can still put it into a large fire, so even moist dates will dry up quickly and serve as firewood. Tenech b'Yom Tov, that explains Yom Tov. You can use them to light a fire. But Shabbos make a What about on Shabbos? You can't light a fire on Shabbos. So these pits are pretty much useless. How could you handle them on Shabbos? And says the Gemara, Metatalin and Lu, we can handle them Aga Rifta, placing them on a piece of bread. So you move the bread, and by way of the bread, you'll move the pits. So it's going to be indirect handling. You can do that. Because Shmuel tells us, Damar Shmuel, Oisa Adam Kotzar Pas. One may use bread for any other purpose that he chooses. And Taisus asks, on Shabbos is mashma that you can't use this bread solution only in very specific cases to transport a mace, and not just for any purpose. So he says that's only when he could have found another option. He could have taken care of it before Shabbos. But in this case, we're stuck with these pits on Shabbos or Yom Tov, so we allow using the bread to handle the pits. Says the Gemara. Now, this whole heter that we had, that if even a chelik of the bread, which was baked for the troops, chelik of the animal, shechta for the troops, can be used for Yisrael, we allow the entire process to be done on Yom Tov. Upliga to Rabbi Shimon Levi. This is going to be in disagreement with Rabbi Shimon Levi, who holds no, you can't even add even a little bit for a guy, even if it's done as part of this collective baking or cooking process. Don't Rabbi Shimon Levi. One may invite a guy to his home on Shabbos. You can invite him for a meal. You can't invite a guy to join your meal on Yom Tov. Why? There's a concern. You better actually increase, place another pot in the stove to add some food for the guy. So although it's one collective cooking and baking process, if you're going to increase for the guy, you can't do that. Rav Acha bar Yaakov Amar, afilu b'Shabbos namiloi. Even on Shabbos, you can't invite a guy. So according to Rabbi Shimon Levi, on Shabbos there's no problem. You're not cooking anyway. But according to Rav Acha bar Yaakov, he says you can't even invite him to your house on Shabbos for a different reason. Mishum shiurei koises, because of the remnants, the wine remnants sitting in the kois of the guy, which is yain nesach. That's going to make the kois muktzah, because it's serving as a base. It contains the muktzah. And we're concerned they might move around the koises when the guy leaves. So don't have him over on Shabbos. If that's the concern, they done nami. What about our koises, which have these remnants of wine with crumbs? They used to dip their bread in the wine. It's repulsive. It's muktzah machmas mius. On account of its repulsiveness, that's also a problem of muktzah. So let's be concerned with our koises. Why only the guys? Chazal says the Gemara, they done. Our remnants are different. Chazal tarnagel, they can be fed to the chickens. So it has a use, and it's not muktzah. The dunami, what about the remnants of the guy? Chazal tarnagel, can they also be fed to the chickens? Big difference. The guy's remnants, isur hananinu. It's completely asur. You can't have any benefit from it. It's yain nesach. So it's useless. It makes it muktzah. V'utaltalinu agav kasa. What's the concern? You have a little wine remnant, and it's nice kais, which is worth way more. And you should be allowed to handle the kais, despite the fact that it has some muktzah in it. The kais doesn't become secondary bottle to the wine within it. It's so much more chashiv. So why is there a muktzah issue? Mila Marav, didn't Rava tell us in a similar case we have no muktzah concerns, but taltal and kinuna, one is allowed to handle the shovel, which is meant to contain coals. So that shovel is a muktzah machmas isser. It's intended to hold coals. It's meant for malacha isser purposes, so it's really muktzah. But you're allowed to handle it on Shabbos, agav kitme, on account of its ashes. So you have some ashes in there, which were prepared in advance, before Shabbos, for personal use. So you're allowed to move around the shovel on account of its heter content. Now the chiddush is afagav deika aleha shivra eitzim, even though you have some wood splinters sitting on this ash, and those are certainly muktzah. It can't be used on Shabbos. We're not concerned because the ashes are so much more important than the small splinters. So we see that value plays a role. The ashes override the muktzah splinters, and here as well, the kois, which is so much more chashav than the little remnants of wine there, should not become muktzah. Answers the Gemara, Hasam, in that case, of Rava with the ashes, la v'sura noninu. Those splinters of wood are not inherently aser b'hana'ah. So it's a lighter form of muktzah, and doesn't go that far, as opposed to the shiurei kois of the goy, the wine, which is yain nesach, hach over here, isura noninu. We're speaking about isura no, which is a more severe form of muktzah, and that muktzah affects the entire glass, it extends it to the kois, and everything is muktzah. So therefore, don't have it go over on Shabbos, because of this muktzah concern. So yes, Ravina, the following shaila. What's the concern with the guy coming over on Shabbos or Yontif? Muktzah. Let's treat the leftover wine in the kais as a graf sharei, as a container meant to hold the waste. So all the waste is muktzah. Chacham suspended muktzah here because of kavod, because of mius. You're allowed to move around the container. Take it out, empty it out. Here as well, we have a kais with some repulsive remnants. Let's move it away because of this heter. It's a graf sharei. Amalei Ravinu responds, that's true after the fact. But to go set ourselves up to expect this to come about, you're not allowed to do that. You can't arrange it. Here you can't invite a guy knowing that you're going to end up with a graf sharei. It's only allowed out of circumstance, out of necessity, but you can't enable it. Ad berei. Rava took for a walk Mar Shmuel. Adbere Rava leMar Shmuel. He took Mar Shmuel for a walk. V'darash, and he began telling him the halach. Mezam nenes hanocher b'Shabbos. Rava began. You're allowed to invite a guy to your home on Shabbos because there's no concern of cooking for him, not cooking anyways. Ve'ein mezam nenes hanocher b'Yontif, but you can't do it on Yontif because of that gzera shemiyara b'shvili, because he might go ahead and increase his cooking for the guy. The Ran says it's only if he adds another pot, but if he actually just increases the volume in his pre-existing pot, that's not a concern. So that's why you can't invite him on Yom Tov. Merema or Mazutra, ki hava makla luhu nacher b'Yom Tov. When a nacher would visit Merema and Mazutra on Yom Tov, so how they get around this concern? So to keep the peace, you know what they told him? Amrulay, they said like this. If you're okay, if you're satisfied, b'mai de trichalon, with the food that we already prepared for ourselves, if you're okay with that, we're going to make food for ourselves, and whatever we do for ourselves will include you. But otherwise, if you're expecting something grandiose, sorry, we can't accommodate you. Tircha, yesera, adat dedach, added work for you, we're not planning on doing that. So, by issuing this disclaimer, they sort of avoided any concerns. They made it clear that they're not going to increase, not going to add. Whatever we're going to eat, we're going to share with you. And this way they circumvented this concern, and it was mutter to have them over. Okay, so in summary, we learned many halachas regarding Eichel Nefesh and Yom Tov. Let's start with Shchita, go over to Afiyah, then to inviting a guy. By Shchita we had as follows. A behema which was a shutfis between Yisrael and a guy, you can do the Shchita. The reason was Efshar, Kazais Basabla Shchita. Because even to access the Yisrael's portion, you have to do Shchita on the entire animal. It's called a Melacha Eichel Nefesh for Yisrael, for Lachem, as opposed to the Karbonis, the Darman and Davis. Even though the Yisrael Kohen will end up with a portion, he's getting it from the carbon aspect. The Shchita is processing the carbon, and then you have something for the Yisrael of the Kohen. That's not called Eichel Nefesh for a hedyot. When it comes to baking, if you have this Isas Klavim, and the shepherds will partake. The Gemara says they have some nevela, which they hope to send to the Klavim, and they'll have the entire baked the bread there. We allow them to bake it, hoping that it's for their own sake. What about a jointly owned dough? Isas Yisrael and Nachri have machlekes. According to one shita, there's no excuse to bake it, just split it before baking. According to the other shita, if even a small portion of it is right for the Yisrael, that allows you to bake the entire thing. Regarding inviting a guy over, so on Yom Tov we had a machlekes. The reason not to invite the guy was because of Shema Yamar B'Shvil, the concern he might add for him. We had machlokes regarding Shabbos as well. The shita not to invite him was because of the wine remnants, which are yain nesach sitting in the kais, which make a muksa concern. The Gemara did conclude that if you tell the guy in advance, look, we're doing whatever we're doing, you could join us, we're not adding anything for you. That will be a heter, and will mitigate that concern. Regarding Eichel Nefesh, for Yisrael it's certainly mutter, for a goy it's aser, for an animal we had a machlekes. Continues the Mishnah. What constitutes Eichel Nefesh? Is it only eating and drinking things which you ingest, or is it rinsing, lighting a fire to warm yourself? A machlekes. A person should not heat up water, which he plans on using to rinse his feet. Elim kain ru'in l'shtia, unless this water is fit for drinking. As Taisa says, he's actually going to drink from this water, but he's going to increase. He's going to add some volume, and that's mutter. Because it's considered a malacha, v'eichel nefesh. Ubesil matir, they allow you even if you plan on using it to rinse your feet. It's also called eichel nefesh. Continues the Mishnah. Oisa adam madura. A person can light a fire on Yom Tov. Umeschamem kenegda. To sit opposite the fire to warm up. The question is, who was the one who issued this last statement? Is it Beis Shammai or Beis Hillel? Hai Madura, this halacha that you can make a Madura on Yom Tov for warming purposes, Man Tanel, who's the author? Is it Divrei HaKoili? All agree that it's mutter? Even Beis Shammai? V'shani lula Beis Shammai, and Beis Shammai will differentiate between Bein Hanos Kol Gufay, a fire which is there to benefit one's entire body, to warm him up, and that's considered Eichel Nefesh, as opposed to using water for rinsing yourself. Lanos Eiver Echad, which only benefits one Eiver, and that's not considered Eichel Nefesh. So there's that distinction. Or perhaps it's only Beis Hillel that allow you to light that fire, just as they allow you to heat up water for rinsing purposes, even though you're not ingesting it. You can light a fire to warm yourself. But according to Beis Shammai, there's no difference, one or the other. Eichel Nefesh means eating and drinking. Rinsing, warming, that's not allowed. Tashma, listen to this raya, then indeed it's only Beis Hillel. Beis Shammai, the Madura, Beis Chama connected, you can't light a fire. Beis Hillel Matir, they say it's considered Eichel Nefesh and it's mutter. So conclusion, heating up water for rinsing your legs, or lighting a fire for warmth, according to Beis Shammai it's aser, Beis Hillel it's mutter. Continues the Mishnah. Shloisha dvar. Regarding the following three halachas, where there was a machlekes between Beis Shammai who say aser and Beis Hillel who say mutter, in all three cases, Rabban Gamliel machmer kedei Beis Shammai. Rabban Gamliel follows the chumrah Beis Shammai and doesn't allow these on Yom Tov. What are the three halachas? Number one, in Taimnin as a chamen al chatchila b'Yom Tov. Of course, the Gemara will elaborate and explain all these halachas. So firstly, we have tatman. Tatman means to insulate. You take a pot with some food or a kettle of water, and you insulate it. You cover it with insulation material to keep it warm overnight. You can't do hatmana on something hot. On Yom Tov, in anticipation of Shabbos the following day. So let's say Yom Tov, it's Friday. You want to be matman something today to keep it warm for Shabbos, you can't do that. Number two, nor could you take this candelabra which fell down, you can't pick it up on Yom Tov. Number three, even though you're allowed to break on Yom Tov, but it has to be within reason. It has to be small scale. You can't bake bitin, gritzin, these large jumbo-sized breads. El Rakikin, the only thing you can do is small, thin loaves with less tircha. So Rabbi Gamliel was machmer and all these halachas. Amar Rabbi Gamliel, in fact, this is the way we did it at home. All throughout my days at home. They didn't bake large breads on Yom Tov, small breads, thin wafers, that's it. The Chacham responded, the halacha doesn't really follow that. What should we do if they did that in your home? There was a chumrah they applied to themselves. But the fact is that they were lenient for everybody else who came to ask. They were lenient to everybody else and allowed them to bake anything. Lias oifen pita and gritzin, All these large breads were baked. And even the charara, these breads baked on the coals, which are huge jumbo breads, everything was allowed. Apparently, la halacha, it's really mut. So let's go back to case number 1. You can't do atmana on Yom Tov. Hey Chidami says, what are we speaking about? Ida anach erev tavshilin. If this fellow prepared an erev tavshilin, which allows him to cook, bake, to insulate, to light a candle from Yom Tov to Shabbos, my time of the Beis Shammai, why don't Beis Shammai allow you to do hatmana for the sake of Shabbos? Erev tavshilin allows you to prepare on Yom Tov for Shabbos. If you didn't make erev tavshilin, my time of the Beis Hillel, why would Beis Hillel allow it? Amar Rav Huna, you know what we're speaking about? This fellow forgot to put an erev. But we make exception for things which he really needs. Ukdei chayav, surely Rabban allowed him to do something, just for basic sustenance. So even though he can't really go ahead and bake and cook freely, but the minimum requirement for what he needs just to live, we allow him. Rav Huna follows his sheet. If a person fails to make erev tavshilin, he can still do something, the minimum needed for survival. They can bake him one bread. The family can go cook one dish. Can light a candle. In the name of Rabbi Yitzchak, they added, you can also roast one fish. We learned the same in a Beitzah. If a person failed to place erev tavshilin, he can have one bread baked. He can insulate one kedera, one pot for Shabbos. He can have one candle lit. And he can cook up one kettle of water. Some add, even roasting a small fish. So that's Rav Huna's approach to the Mishnah, was speaking that he didn't have erev tavshilin, but according to Beis Hillel, we allow him something. Kedei chayav. Beis Shammai disagree, you can't do anything. Rava comes to answer our kasha. What are we speaking about? Why can't he go ahead and do hatmana on Yom Tov for Shabbos if he made erev tavshilin? Rava Amar lo olam she'niach. Certainly this fellow has an erev tavshilin. Why don't Beis Shammai allow you to do hatmana? You know why? Vishani hatmana. Hatmana is very different than cooking and baking. By cooking and baking, it's not so evident, it's not so obvious that I'm doing it for tomorrow. Right? This fellow's baking on Yom Tov. For all we know, he needs it for Yom Tov. He's cooking for Shabbos. For all we know, he needs it for today. It's not so clear that he's doing it for Shabbos. That's not really a zilzal on Yom Tov. But when it comes to hatmana, generally, why would he hide his pot? Why would he insulate his kettle? Generally, it's done to be kept overnight for tomorrow. The Muchacha Milsa, it's pretty evident and clear that Adata the Shabbat, he's doing it for tomorrow for Shabbos. And every Shammai hold, even an erev tavshilin won't enable hatmana from one day to the next. Abai asks a kasha. Really? Chananya Omer. Beis Shammai Omer. Chananya's version is that Beis Shammai maintain that erev tavshilin has to be case specific, which means Ein oifen elam kein erev pas. You want to bake on Yom Tov for Shabbos? Sure, if you prepared an erev tavshilin with a baked item. So a baked good can go ahead and enable baking. It's very specific. Ve'ein mevashlim. The only way you can cook from Yom Tov to Shabbos is if you prepared a cooked dish in advance. Elam kein erev b'tavshil. Ve'ein toimnin. Likewise, you can't do hatmana unless you made hatmana. As part of your erev tavshilin, you sort of initiated the hatmana process that allows you to continue being matman for Shabbos. Ve'ein toimnin elam kein hoyloi chamnin tmunin me'erev Yom Tov. Only if you have some heated food insulated before Yom Tov, which is part of your erev tavshilin arrangement. So according to Chananya's version of Beis Shammai, erev tavshilin enables you to do anything you want as long as you initiated that particular process before Yom Tov and you included that into your erev tavshilin arrangement. You place some bread, you're allowed to bake. You place down some food, you're allowed to cook. You started hatmana, allows you to be matman the next day for Shabbos. Oh, that's the Beitzah. Says more, apparently. If you put the insulated chametz into his erev tavshilin, Mia of it. And certainly you can go ahead and continue that process and do Atmana on Yom Tov for Shabbos. V'avakav demuchim also. Even though it's pretty clear and evident, why am I doing this Atmana for tomorrow? The data of the Shabbos covered. He's doing it for Shabbos. Apparently says Abaye, no qualms, no problem. So how could Rava say that according to Beis Shammai, Atmana is never allowed? Elamar Abaye says Abaye, I'll tell you Pshat in the Mishnah. You know why you can't do Atmana according to Beis Shammai? What happened was, he only made a partial Erev. Says Rashi on the top line of the Amud. What does that mean? He cooked a bit, he baked a bit for the Erev Tavshil before Yom Tov, but never did Hatmana as part of that arrangement. He didn't start Hatmana before Yom Tov. Continues the Gemara. This is Chananya Shita, who just told us that according to Beis Shammai, each item allows its category. Baking allows baking, cooking allows cooking, Atmana allows Atmana. Our Mishnah was speaking that he cooked and baked in advance, but didn't do Atmana before Yom Tov, so it doesn't enable Atmana on Yom Tov. So in conclusion, we have three Pshatim in our Mishnah. Why is it that Beis Shammai don't allow Atmana? Pshat number one was speaking that he forgot to make Erev Tavshil. We still make exception, Kedei Chayav, just something small, something minimal, to allow him to survive is allowed. Beis Shammai disagree. You have to go somehow procure permissible food from your friend, your neighbor. According to Rava, Beis Shammai never allow Hatmana in advance of Shabbos, even if you have Erev Tavshil, because it's evident and clear that you're doing this for Shabbos. According to Abaye, he was speaking that he made an Erev Tavshilin, but only to allow him to cook and bake. He didn't do any Atmana before Yom Tov. So cooking and baking, sure, but Atmana he cannot do. So, what are we learning today? We started with a Shaila. What's the difference between doing a Shechita on a jointly owned animal? Behema Chetzi Shel Yisrael, Chetzi Shel Nachri. No problem, do the Shechita, but a carbon. Although it's partially for Hashem and partially for us, Shechita is not allowed. The Gemara responded, it's a big difference. By Behemis Yisrael v'Nachri, you can't get to the Yisrael's portion without Shechita. So in effect, you're doing the Shechita for the sake of the Yisrael's portion, which is Eichel Nefesh Lachem, as opposed to the Dharma and Davis. That's a carbon, that's not Lachem, that's the Gavaya. And even though the Yisrael, the Kohen, will get something, he's getting it from Hashem, but in effect, the Shechita was part of the Akrobah process. It's not called Eichel Nefesh. What about baking a jointly owned dough? So let's start with Isas Klavim, full of bran, which the shepherds can eat from, and hopefully will eat. They're allowed to break it. If it's jointly owned dough, Yisrael and Nachri, machlekes. Some say no, because in contrast to the animal, here you can go ahead and split it beforehand. Split the dough and bake it separately. According to another sheet in the Gemara, as long as it's going to benefit a Yisrael somewhat, even a portion of it will be eaten by the Yisrael, allows you to bake the entire thing. Regarding inviting a guy over on Yom Tov, we had a machlekes. Some say yeah, some say no, because he might actually add some of the cooking for his sake. According to the other shita, it's mutter, because as long as some of it is going to the Yisrael, that will be mutter. Just as the shita that held you can bake a jointly owned dough as long as some of it will benefit the Yisrael. It's considered a malacha for the sake of Yisrael. Once he has to do it for the Yisrael, it's mutter, even though part of it goes to the guy. Regarding inviting him on Shabbos, one shita says no problem, because you're not cooking in any case. Another shita says there is a concern here as well because of muktzah. What about the wine remnants in the kais, which make a muktzah as a concern? He might handle that kais. The other shita disagrees. Not going to go handle a muktzah, so therefore you can invite him. We also learned about the definition of eichel nefesh. For a nachri, it's aser, lachem v'loy la'akim. What about for a behema? Better machlekes. One shita says yes, one shita says no. What about heating up water to rinse one's feet? What about lighting a fire for warmth? Shammai say no, it's not eichel nefesh. We still consider that to be eichel nefesh as well. The Mishnah discussed several machlokes between Shammai and Hillel. The first one being, Shammai say you can't do atmana on Yom Tov for the sake of tomorrow's Shabbos. With three pshatim, he didn't put an erev tavshila, but we allow Kedei Chayav, that's Beis Shammai say no exceptions. Second Shah was, he prepared an Erev Tavshilin. But Beis Shammai never allow Hatmona from Yom Tov to Shabbos, because it's clear that he's doing it for Shabbos. That's a zilzal on Yom Tov. Abayi's Shah was, he has an Erev Tavshilin, but it was only for cooking and baking. He didn't do Hatmana as part of his Erev arrangement, or following Chananya, who hold, according to Beis Shammai, the only way to do Hatmana on Yom Tov for Shabbos is if he initiated some Hatmana before Yom Tov and incorporated it into his Erev Tavshilin. But in this case, since he didn't, we still say no problem, because anything that he included in the Erev Tavshilin allows him to do anything else. Whereas Beis Shammai say, it's very case specific. Only cooking for cooking. Baking allows baking, and Atmana allows Atmana. In this case, he didn't do Atmana. So you can cook and bake, but not be matri. All the best to you, and much hatzlacha.